All right. All right, everybody. So my name is Shane Simmons, and I am the founder of Crimson Media. We are a dental marketing firm who focuses on helping dentists build freedom in their practice through proven online marketing strategies. And today I'm going to talk about one of the strategies we have used that has literally been a game changer for so many people. And it's something that you can start implementing in your practice as well. And it's called Omnipresence Marketing. It's essentially how you're going to become the go-to dentist in your community. And omnipresence marketing, really quickly, is just about being everywhere that your patients are. Wherever they are searching, where they're spending their leisure time, you want them to see your practice, because what it does is, after time and time again of them seeing you, seeing stories about you and your patients, you are going to be the authoritative figure when it comes to dentistry in your community. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. And I'm going to be giving real applicable strategies that you can start putting in place. So there's essentially 3 steps to creating what we like to call this undefeated marketing strategy. And this is, again, the overall how you create this omnipresence. And the first thing is, you have to be visible on the #1 platform that patients are using to find a dentist. And specifically, you need to know what it takes to dominate this space. And we're going to talk about this in this training, and again, give specific details on how to do this. Now, the second thing is, you need to know the secret of social media, how you can actually use it to attract new patients this month. And I'm not talking about just posting a few things on social, hoping you get a couple likes and comments. We're going to talk about a strategy you can really put forward that's going to see results within the first 30 to 45 days. And then finally, kind of wrapping this whole thing up, we're going to talk about your KPIs when it comes to online marketing, which, of course, a KPI is a key performance indicator. So we're going to talk about what it is you need to be measuring to ensure your online marketing efforts are where they need to be. Now, the first thing we need to talk about, this all comes back to the patient. It's not about us. It's not about us in the dental profession. It's about the patient. How do you get seen by them, first and foremost? Because if they can't see you, you don't exist. It's as simple as that. So that's the first part, is being seen. But then the second part of this is, you have to have some level of credibility in the eyes of the patient. And that's why, internal referrals in our practice are so great, because you already get that credibility because they know a family or a friend who sees you and kind of given their word and they trust you. But how do you do that online? Well, we're going to talk about that here in this presentation. And then we also got to talk about, how the patient, is going to decide which dentist is right for them, and how you can help paint that picture of why you are the dentist that they should see, and that you're, quite frankly, more than just someone who's going to be looking at their teeth. Now, before we get into this, too specifically here, I want you to understand the patient's journey. And traditionally, we used to think about, a patient finds your website and then they schedule an appointment. And when we work in our office day to day, this is sometimes the illusion that we start creating, because we are in our business every day. We're in the office. We just assume that's how the patient finds us. But in reality, it's more like this second figure on the bottom, which, by the way, this graphic was on the AAID's website. It was really, I thought, accurate on how patients are finding you. But it talks about, they're using Google search, they're using word of mouth, social media, insurance referrals. They're getting their information from all these different mediums and platforms. And then they go and they actually look at your online reviews and make sure that you are who you say you are, or patients are having positive experiences. And we know there's tons of different websites out there for online reviews, Google reviews, Yelp, etc. And then at that point is when they actually start going to your website and scheduling an appointment. So there's so many different points that we're actually contacting the patient, or the patient's contacting our brand before they actually even hit the website or schedule an appointment. And so that's why this omnipresence, being everywhere your patients are, is so important to standing out. And the good news for all of you is that the majority of dental practices still aren't doing this. And so there's a huge opportunity for you to dominate this space. So the first thing I want to talk about, though, specifically is online search. And, of course, we're going to be talking about Google when it comes to online search. And a lot of people don't realize this, but more than 80% of patients are still using Google when they're looking for a new dentist. And Google is, it's nothing new, obviously. Many of you have probably invested in organic search. Maybe some of you have not, but there's always, this factor of needing to be present where people are searching. If you think about what you do to search for, a new restaurant near you, or if you're going to be going to some sort of event and you Google the event, that's just the nature of how we find things today. And now with Google search, there's basically two ways that a patient can find you. And there's actually three, but we're going to touch on two specifically. You have Google Local and you have Google Search. And then the third one would be Google Paid Ads, which we're not going to talk about specifically in this presentation, but Google Local and Google Search are essentially your organic search results. And each of these are critical to getting patients to, one, know you exist, but two, actually trust your practice. And I'm going to show you how you can actually get into those top search results. First of all, we're going to talk about Google Local, and Google Local is an example here that you're going to be seeing. This is, if somebody were to Google a dentist, in Burlington, MA, for example, this is what would come up. And this is the Google Local, or as many refer to it as the snack pack. So obviously, you want to be in that top three of this area when someone's searching. So in order to figure out how we actually do that, we need to unveil the Google algorithm and show you what Google is actually looking for in order to give yourself the opportunity to appear in those search results, which, by the way, have crazy amounts of traffic going to them every single month. So, the first thing we got to realize is there are 4 key elements to ranking or appearing in that Google local search area. And the first one is pretty self-explanatory. It's proximity. So how close is your practice to the person doing the search? So obviously, if you are in, one city and, somebody's Googling a dentist in an opposite city, you're not going to appear for that particular area. However, when someone's in your city, you obviously have a chance of being in the search results. So that's pretty easy. We can't really help our location. So that's, number 1, proximity. Number 2 is relevance. And relevance is, if someone's searching for a dentist, dental practices are going to come up. Someone's searching for a periodontist, periodontal practices are come up, orthodontist, et cetera, et cetera. So the type of practice you have is one of the factors. But the bottom 2 that I'm about to mention are really where we can start controlling and we can start feeding Google what it wants to see in order to get ahead of our competitors in the market. And one of those is your prominence. So this is what others are saying about your practice. And this comes down to your Google reviews. Your Google reviews right now are extremely important to deciding whether or not Google is going to bump you up in those search rankings. And so if you think about, what Google is looking for, they want a lot of reviews, yes, but they also want quality reviews. The more 5-star reviews you have, 4-star reviews, the better. The more explanations that people give in those reviews, the better. And so, being sure that you're getting Google reviews is imperative versus maybe some of the other platforms where you have like Facebook, you can, leave recommendations and reviews. Yelp, you can leave recommendations and reviews. If you need to focus on one area to really guide your reviews, that needs to be in Google. So up your Google reviews is going to help. But the fourth and probably most important is the quality of citations you have and their accuracy. Now, when I say a citation, what I mean by that is directories that your practice is listed on. A directory would be something like Yelp, something like Yellow Pages, White Pages, even Facebook, something where your business is mentioned, has your address, your phone number, business name, et cetera, et cetera. That is what's considered a citation. And so you need to have a high volume of these, but you also need to make sure that they are extremely accurate. And this is why if you were to Google, for example, a dentist near me or something like that, you may see that practices who have maybe less Google reviews than you still rank higher than you on those search results. And you're like, well, why is that? I have more reviews, or I have better reviews. And that's because you probably don't have the number of citations that Google's looking for, or maybe you have them, but they're mismatched. They're not all accurate to one another. And so that can be something that could be deterring you from seeing those top 3 search results. So an example of a citation, so you can get a better visual of it. This is one that we just pulled from Yelp. And obviously it has to have your address on there. And the address needs to be exactly how it looks on your Google My Business listing. So for example, for this particular practice, you can see they have the 11479 Lantern RD for road. That's how it's listed in their Google My Business. If they were to spell road out here on Yelp, like ROAD, and then still have it abbreviated on their Google My Business listing, then Google would see that as an inaccurate listing, and that would actually hurt them in the search results. So that's really important, is making sure right away that you are checking all these sites that your practice is listed on to make sure the address, everything is spelled out completely the same. Same with the phone number. If you have parentheses around the area code in some and others you don't, or you have a dash between numbers on your Google My Business and on some of your directories you don't, everything needs to match up and look exactly the same. So that is really important. And there are different tools that you can use to check that. Obviously, if you're doing any sort of SEO or search engine optimization, your marketing company should be doing that for you. However, there is websites like Bright Local, for example, brightlocal.com, where you can run in a report and check this yourself. So one of the questions that I always ask people is, for one of those businesses that rank in the top 3 of that Google Local, that snack pack we talked about, how many of those businesses ranked in the top 3, how many citations do they have? And I typically hear people say anywhere between 5 and 20. That's kind of their guess. It's like they probably have 5 or 20 website listings, and that's what gets them ranked there. And the answer is actually 85. Now, I know a lot of you may be thinking, Shane, I don't even know 85 different websites I could get listed on right now off the top of my head. And that's where some of these tools like Bright Local can be really great. Or again, if you're using a marketing company, they should be able to find those for you and make sure that your website's not only listed on those, but accurate, like we just discussed. So that's really important into getting your website ranked up there into the top of the Google Local. And you can do this. It can be done, but those are the steps that you need to take. So here's a list of just some of the most popular local business citations that you could check right now to make sure that you have. Obviously, I'm assuming all of you probably have your practice on Facebook. If not, you probably need to do that. Yelp, MapQuest, Yellow Pages, Manta. I mean, these are sites that people aren't necessarily going to go to find you. But again, it's just telling Google, this is all for Google, that, hey, your website is 1, legit, and 2, is on a number of these different sites. So that way you have it's basically like a good standing when it comes to online search. It just builds credibility for Google. So there's some of those websites that you can, again, go ahead and check and make sure that you have those, your practice listed on those. Now, still the most popular form of Google search is the actual organic search results that fall below that maps or that snack pack area we discussed. And so that's what this looks like here, this example. You see a little bit more detail. People, tend to still click more on this area because, it does tell a little bit more about the practice rather than just give their name and address, etc. So this is what we're going to be talking about next, and how you can actually, get your practice up there into those search results, because once you do that, I'm telling you, it is a game changer as far as the way that your practice will be more automated, how patients will find you, and you'll start seeing more phone calls. So this is really important. So before we dive into the actual strategy, I hear these questions all the time because there's been a lot of confusion and, quite frankly, a lot of people burned by Google, SEO experts, so to speak. And they might hear something like, well, do I need to have a blog, and do I need to blog every week? Or, do I need to make sure I have keywords listed throughout my website? Like, for example, dentist, Indianapolis, Indiana. Or, do I need to get more reviews? Is it the reviews that are holding me back? Is it, social media? Do I need to be posting more on there? I've heard Google pulls from social media. Or maybe it's the content on my website. Do I need more? Do I need less? Do I need more video? And really, all of these things can play a small factor in that. But what we're going to really specifically touch on is what Google looks at to be the most important factor in ranking your practice in our experience. And this is the formula that we use that's taking clients from page 5 and 6 to the top of page 1. It's on-site optimization plus backlinks plus Google local optimization, which we just talked about. And that is what results in a high Google ranking. And this is an example of once these things were implemented. It's just one client of ours that kind of shows the graph of what can happen from going from, this was like position 17 on Google, where he was stuck there for about a year, to obviously jumping up to number 1 and floating between number 1 and 3 in those organic search listings for his city and then the term dentist. So that's obviously a pretty big jump in 1 year's time. So this on-site optimization, really quick, is something that I want to talk about because, quite frankly, we just don't have enough time in this presentation to get into everything in detail. But really what your on-site optimization is making sure that, one, your website is loading, quickly. It's fast. It's not slow. Everything's loading quickly. It's formatted correctly, etc. So there's a number of different websites you can run the website speed tests on. For example, Google speed test. You can Google that. You can plug your website in there, and you can actually get a read on that. So that's one. Another thing, that on-site optimization is it mobile friendly, which everybody's website should be now because most people are searching on a mobile device these days. And then you also have things like your meta tags, meta descriptions, which are what describes your website. You can think about, when you see something that you Google, you see the practice name and, best dentist in, your city. That's kind of like your meta tag, your meta descriptions, making sure your images are labeled so that Google can actually read them, etc. So, that's just kind of in a nutshell, on-site optimization and how that works. But we're going to talk a lot about backlinks, okay? And a backlink is essentially a link that one website gets from another website. And so the analogy that I like to use when describing this is, think of like the person who's like super popular at the party. Like they get all the attention. People tend to just flock around them. Everybody's laughing at their jokes. They're just that kind of person, very outgoing, dynamic individual. Versus the person who's kind of like in the corner, like, what the heck? What does that person have that I don't have? Why are they so funny? Why do they get the crowds like effortlessly? It's kind of how people look at search and backlinks. The popular websites are the ones that are, appear at the top of the search results of Google. And that's because other websites are talking about them. They're linking to that website. And that shows Google, who's, at the end of the day, Google's job is to provide the best service, the best search experience to the person using their platform. So if they see a lot of websites are linking to one particular site, and especially in our case, about dentistry or dental related terms, they're going to move it up in the search rankings because they're going to assume that that is a better website and it's got more information, it's got quality information, and they're going to pull it up because it's going to have the best search result for their searcher versus the website that nobody's talking about, has no real presence online, no links pointing to it, nobody's talking about it. Google's going to assume with their algorithm that that website maybe isn't as great of an experience for the person searching. And so that's really how you can look at a backlink and how it impacts your overall search rankings and why it's so important. And in our opinion, really the most important factor in ranking your site, assuming you have that on-site optimization endpoint as well. And this is an actual example of a backlink. And this is a client of ours in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And there's an article that's written here. And in the article, it references our client. So if you were to click on that piece of text, it would take you to our client's website. Now, people aren't necessarily finding our client through that website. This is a national article, but what it's telling Google is this national article that has, number of different people reading it every single week, every single month is referencing our client for Tulsa Dentist. That must be super relevant for the term Tulsa Dentist. We're going to pull them up in those search rankings. And so that's what a backlink essentially does and what it looks like in action. Now, these are some tools that you can use to spy on your competitors, or you can even, look at your own search rankings and see where you stand for particular keywords. Because if you're just Googling, like from your office, dentist near me, you're not getting like accurate search results. Like if you're doing that, at least do it in an incognito tab on Google Chrome. But because of the cookies on your website, your location, all of these different things, you're not going to get an accurate perspective on where you're at. So a tool like this ahrefs.com, the spyfu.com, those are things will actually plug your website in and it will tell you where you stand for particular keywords. This Google website speed test is what I mentioned earlier to test how fast your website is loading. And if you don't want to have to bother with signing up for free trials for like the Ahrefs or the SpyFu and that sort of thing, you could reach out to us at Crimson Media, crimsonmediagroup.com, and we'll run a free competitor analysis for all of our Smile Source members. So that's something that we'll do to give you an idea of where you're at within that local search. So that's going to cover our organic search and its importance in part of creating this omnipresence. Now, the second part of this is social media and having an actual strategy where you're not just posting to post, but something that you can actually use to build an audience. And the best way I can put this is that it is easier today than ever before to get in front of prospective patients. It's just so easy with the targeting and the pinpoint accuracy that we have. And so there's absolutely no reason we shouldn't be using these tools to help educate and build our brand in our communities. So where most practices are struggling is quite honestly what this picture represents. And that's that there's so many social media platforms out there that we try many times to be on all of them. And we try to post content, to all of them, and it's the same type of content on all of them, when in reality, your target audiences are going to be on different platforms. Older generation people who maybe are more established, more maybe for candidates for implants, et cetera, are going to be on Facebook. Whereas your younger generations, they're going to be mostly on Instagram. And then there's sites like Twitter that really don't even serve the dental practice very well. And so what I want to focus on strictly today is Facebook and the social media strategy that's actually going to work for your practice over time. And you need to really have the formula of educating first, then adding your targeting to that. So who are you educating? You need to know that audience. And finally, you have to distribute. And with social media and Facebook ads, you got to pay to play. You have to pay to play. That's what they want us to do. And that's how we're going to reach people. And so we need to be able to add these three things together in order to get a successful campaign that we are wanting to achieve at the end of the day. And so here's an example, okay? This is a particular campaign we ran in October of 2018 about reminding patients of their dental benefits and to use those before they lose them at the end of the year. So what we did was recorded on a cell phone, quick video, one of our docs, basically just had him, say, be sure to use your benefits. If you have any work that needs to be done, now's the time to do it, et cetera, et cetera. It was really short, self-explanatory, not super scripted or anything like that. And we put that video with an ad and some content here on the paid ad. You can see it says important, and it's got like these little emojis. Don't forget to use your dental benefits for the end of the year. We have a few openings left, so click book now and get an appointment scheduled. And so we ran this from October, through December, up to December, and we targeted, females between 30 and 50 years old who are within a 5-mile radius of the practice, because they tend to be the person who's making the decision to book doctor's appointments and dentist appointments for their families. And we put $1,000 a month behind this spend here. And what we did is we got a lot of people, many, existing patients of the practice getting back in, doing their recall appointments. But then we also had it targeting people who weren't just our patients. And so we started getting a lot of new patients from it as well, because quite frankly, this was a unique approach. It was a reminder to them, which they may have just, forgotten in general. And the doctor, just hearing his voice, seeing him, it provides a little bit more of a less intimidating experience for the patient. It was a unique way to reach them. And so we got some new patients from this as well. But what we did is we ran this for, about four weeks at the beginning. And then we took anybody who watched at least 25% of that video, and we put this video in front of those individuals. So this video was actually a professional video that we had kind of like shot for the client a while back, and it had patient testimonials. It kind of talks about the culture of the practice. And basically what it was doing is just anybody who was watching 25% of the first video, just kind of putting this content back in front of them, letting them know that, hey, we're still here. If you have any questions, we understand people don't necessarily like to go to the dentist. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but we're here to show you that it can be a positive experience. And as you can see, we had 5,500 views on it, 11 different shares. People were reacting to it, commenting on it. Again, we put some ad spend behind it, and we had a record month. We had a record month there for November and December, at the end of the year, and it really got the practice started off on a great foot, moving treatment forward into the next year with some of these new patients, just by running this simple campaign that got people in front or got our doctors in front of them. And so this is, again, something that you could do in your practice. You don't have to, it's nice to have a professional video on your website and stuff, but if you are going to be posting some content on social, it's totally fine just using your cell phone. That's totally fine. And putting this type of content out there, you could do it for anything, implants, Invisalign, you name it. You can actually have content out there like this and retarget these individuals. And you're going to separate yourself from the competition. It's a unique angle to take. Now, the step 3 of a successful social media campaign, an ad campaign, is the follow-up process. And it has to be quick, and your team has to be 100% on board with doing this. And so there's basically 3 parts to the follow-up. There's the email, there's the text message, and there's the phone call. And so with an email, an automated email should be sent immediately following a new patient request through a social media ad. So, there's softwares out there, a number of different dental softwares, that you can use. We use, like ActiveCampaign, MailChimp. Those are more on the marketing side. But these are, examples of softwares you can use where someone says, okay, I want an appointment through a Facebook ad. They can get an email immediately following and have a clear call to action in that email, call now, schedule. That's an example of what that would look like here on the side is, call our office, speak with one of our friendly team members, attend your appointment. And, this is one of the ways that you are just, again, going to stay in front of that individual. Text messaging is becoming more important for dental practices because of the open rates of a text message, because of the personalization you can have with the text message. It's a little bit more informal, which is, oftentimes a nice little touch. So, here's an example of a quick text message you could send a patient who says, okay, I want an appointment, or, I want a consultation through a Facebook ad or an Instagram ad. It's something as easy as hi, and have, their name inserted there. Thanks for requesting an appointment at our dental office. Please call us at, to reserve your appointment today. We look forward to meeting you. And that's a really easy way to send text messages out. You can even add emojis in them these days, anything like that, but staying in front of these individuals. And again, this is all happening within like 5 to 10 minutes of the patient requesting an appointment through a social media ad. And you have to have someone dedicated to, responding to these texts if you have those. So if you use something like Weave, having that app prepared and being prepared to respond and text back and forth with patients is going to really increase your chances of success and conversion. And then last, but certainly not least, is the phone call. And the phone call is so important. It needs to be within 5 minutes of a new patient lead coming in. It has to be super quick, because that's when the patient is in that state of mind that they need to book the appointment, schedule the appointment, etc. So having a dedicated team member to pretty much around the clock be ready to schedule the appointment is absolutely imperative, and having somewhat of a script too on how to handle these social media leads, because they are different than an internal referral. So just knowing that and having a plan, and ultimately just hitting that touch point of the phone call, the text message, the email, the retargeting ads. You can see how this kind of all adds up. And after a while, you're just kind of inundating your audience with your presence. And that is going to have a huge ROI in the long term, and even in the short term. But long term, this is creating massive brand awareness right now. Now, we have to be able to tie this all back in and say, okay, how are we going to measure this? How do we know if what we're doing is moving the needle forward? And I always tell people marketing is a long-term play. Sure, you should get some short-term results, but it's a long-term play. And if you look at any company that has built an unbelievable brand, that's the approach that they take. Rome wasn't built overnight, and the same thing goes for your dental practice. So I'm going to list out, some KPIs that you need to be measuring, definitely be looking at every, few weeks, but really strategizing over every quarter to make adjustments and pivot if you need to. So these are our online advertising KPIs. The first one is pretty self-explanatory. That's a conversion. That's when the prospective patient requests an appointment, whether it's they call, they schedule through an online form. That's usually what we're measuring as a conversion. Some people might count a conversion as, well, they watched the video we wanted them to watch. That could be a conversion as well. So it's really what you make it. Impressions, how many times was your ad seen? Was your practice seen? This is just making sure that you're getting eyeballs on your brand. You see, all the time. Think of the commercials you see and billboards and of different companies like McDonald's and Starbucks and all of these different companies. Think about the impact that has long term and why these companies are so successful. The same goes for your dental practice. Obviously, cost per click is something probably most of you are aware of. How much you're paying on average for a click to your ad. Give you an idea in the online space for a Google ad, which is still a very successful campaign that you can use because people are already searching for you. But with a Google ad, you typically pay anywhere between $5 or $6 to $11 and $12 per click, depending on the market you're in. With the Facebook ad, you usually pay under $1 per click. So it just gives you an idea of how you can use each platform to where your practice is at right now and best utilize your marketing dollars. Your click-through rate is obviously the number of clicks that advertisers receive on their ads per the number of impressions. Anything above 1% is considered a healthy campaign. Okay, so if you start, getting in above 1%, 2, 3, 4, we even have some that are 5 and 6%. That means you're getting a lot of action happening, and your target audience is really honed in. Once you start dipping below 1%, it doesn't mean it's time to freak out and stop advertising. But what it means is it's time to add some new photos maybe, or change up the text, the copy, or just take a different approach and pivot. And you would be surprised that, taking a different angle in an ad or using a different image can have a big difference. It's kind of crazy, honestly, but sometimes that can happen. So the last thing you want to do, though, is if you see an unhealthy, below 1% click-through rate, to just think you need to give up on it, because, many times it can be changed pretty quickly, pretty easily. And then finally, it's just, your relevance. Is your ad actually relevant to the audience that you are talking to? And if it's not, then your ads just aren't going to show up high. They're not going to show up, and you're not going to get many clicks on them. If you're not getting many clicks on them, your click-through rate's going to go down, cost per click is going to go up. Then that's when your campaign is going to be kind of out of whack, so to speak. So those are your KPIs. But really what you need to know going into this is just knowing your numbers. Know what your cost per new patient is and how much you're willing to spend to get a new patient in the door. How much are you willing to spend to get a new hygiene patient? How much are you willing to spend to get a new ortho patient, a new implant patient? What are you willing to spend? And you can really start building your campaigns around that. You should also know the lifetime value of a new patient in your practice. How much revenue is that patient going to generate for you? If they're going to generate an average of, let's just say $3,000, for example, over a lifetime, it's okay to spend $100, $150 to get that patient. That's a good ROI. So just taking a quarterly approach to your marketing is something that's going to help you paint a very clear picture rather than just kind of blind firing and seeing what works. So finally, it's just about taking action and not being afraid to try some new things. Perfectionism is going to lead to procrastination, and procrastination is going to lead to disappointing results. So don't be afraid to put yourself out there. Try doing some videos. Try doing some, funny different types of pictures and things for your social media. Take some risks, because that's what business is about. Just taking calculated risks, and the payoffs could be huge. But you can't worry about it being perfect every single time, because in the online world, in the marketing world, a lot of times nothing is ever 100% perfect, and that's okay. Document, have someone in your practice documenting at least once, maybe even twice a week with video on their cell phone, taking pictures. Having someone there who's dedicated to doing that on your team is going to be huge when you actually have assets you can use in your marketing, rather than having to rely on stock photos, which people are just sick of seeing, and you're not going to get much success out of that. And then finally, just implement. Just take what you've documented and implement it into your social media, implement it into your website. And don't be afraid to kind of show a different side of you, because people are going to appreciate that. And that's going to lead you to having fun. And when you're having fun, people in the practice should be having fun, your team, your patients, and it's going to create an awesome culture, build on the culture that you already have, and also lead to growth in your practice, which at the end of the day is what you want your marketing to do. And so, as famous Winston Churchill once said, success consists of going from failure to failure without loss of enthusiasm. And that's what marketing is all about, is you are going to run some campaigns that aren't going to go over as well as you thought. That doesn't mean you give up on marketing or give up on advertising. It means you pivot and you try something new or try adjusting, and you continue to do this until you find something, because there's always going to be a solution out there, but you sometimes have to meet failure before you can pivot and move forward. And the most successful businesses are ones that fail and don't give up they keep going. So remember that. Don't be afraid of that, and have that mindset. And it's going to change everything in your practice. So I just want to thank you guys for watching this presentation. Hopefully I'll be seeing many of you coming up here at the Exchange in Atlanta next year in 2020. And I just thank you guys very much for listening to this. And before I wrap up, I just have a couple of free tools that you can use here. InShot is an app you can download. You can put text above your videos using that platform. So it's really cool, especially when you're doing any sort of ads. And then Canva, if you aren't using that, I highly suggest it. Quick, easy way to make some graphics and things without having to be a graphic designer. So definitely check out those free tools. And again, you can always reach out to us at Crimson Media. Our website's crimsonmediagroup.com. We would be happy to help you out and answer any questions that you might have or evaluate your current marketing. We would be happy to do so. So thank you guys very much.
Awesome.
All right.